Hello again. This is the last part of my tutorial where I will be making the inserts and the final details in my album. Thank you for 800 subscribers. It means so much to me that you like my work. And I'm already working on my next album, and it's gonna be a little bigger than this one. But I'm gonna start with a piece of cardstock, and I'm gonna cut it down to 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. I don't know if you could hear, but my son just sneezed. As some of you know, I have 3 kids. My oldest son, Kian, is 3, and my daughter, Amelia, is 1, and then there's Cosmos. He is 2 months. I'm just making sure that this fits in my pocket. Then I'm gonna find my corner punch, and I am gonna punch out the corners with the 10mm punch. And I'm just gonna do that on all 4 corners. So one of my friends asked me the other day, how do you find time in your day to do all of this when you have 3 little ones? And I said, I don't. I usually do this at night when the kids are asleep. Now I'm gonna take a tab die. If you have a punch, then you could just as well use that. And I only need 1, but I am gonna die cut 2, just because why not? I have 2 small pieces, so maybe I could do something with the other one, but I'm not going to, but it's nice to have an extra just in case. And I'm just scoring them in the middle so they'll be easier to fold. If I sometimes sounds a little tired in these tutorials, I am sorry, but I don't get a lot of sleep. Usually when I sit down to make something, it's hard to just stop. If I just had a new idea, then I'm afraid that I'm gonna forget it. And sometimes I stay up until 2, 3 at night. And my kids usually sleep till 7 in the morning, but of course my youngest son needs to get fed sometimes at night, so who needs sleep anyway? I'm gonna get my oxide and my ink tool, and then I'm gonna ink the edges on both of my tabs. And then I just need to add a little glue. I am just adding a small line of glue at first, and then I'm using the media mat to find the middle of my insert. And then I'm adding some more glue to glue the rest of it down. And as usual, I'm using my towel to clean up the excess glue. So now I have the base of my insert and I just need to decorate it. I'm getting one of the cutout sheets and I want to use this clock on the front of my insert. So I am gonna cut it out with my scissors. And when you're cutting something as big and round as this, you're gonna want your scissors to be as big or long as possible. It's gonna make it easier to get a clean cut. Notice how I am not moving my scissors around the clock, but instead turning the paper in between the scissors while I'm cutting. And I'm just gonna use a photo of my kids to see where I need to cut it. You'll want to cut it a little smaller than the photo you're gonna use. And I am just leaving about 1/8 of an inch on both sides to overlap the photo. So this actually fits perfect with some lines that are already on the design. And I'm only cutting inside the clock. I am not gonna cut in the frame around it. And I am sorry again for my big head being in the frame. I am gonna cut the other side as well. And it's kind of important that your cutting lines starts and ends the same place across from each other. And then I'm making some small pencil marks on the edge around the clock. And again, I am just using the lines that are already printed on the design. And then I am gonna cut from my pencil mark and around the clock down to the line I already cut. So I am leaving about an inch uncut just above the number 12. And that is gonna be my hinge in the window. And I am cutting the other side as well. So this is what it looks like now. And then I just need to cut it free at the bottom. And I am being really careful. And again, turning my paper instead of moving my knife. So now I have a window or a flap that I can open up. I just need to add a small piece of tape so it won't tear. I'm putting it on the side that's gonna get glued down. So you're not really gonna be able to see it. You're gonna want the tape to go over the lines you already cut. And then you can just cut through it. And I'm just gonna go over it with my bone folder to make sure that it's flat and has no air bubbles. And then I'm taking my ruler and I am laying it right where the cut lines end. And then I'm gonna push the flap up against the ruler and make sure that it's gonna fold the way I want it to. You can't really do this on a scoreboard because then it would just rip in the paper where the cut lines end. So now I'm done with the flap, and then I just need to add some kind of tab because I want the flap to be magnetic. So I'm gonna use these two small keyholes. And then I'll have something to cover up both sides of the magnet. Luckily, these two are exactly the same. They're just in two different colors. And I think I'm gonna use the brown one on the outside and then this gray silver one on the inside. Now I've cut out all of my pieces. I just need to ink all of the edges. And remember the inside of the clock as well. It's a little hard to ink the inside of the frame, but just be careful that you don't tear your paper. I'm gonna glue on the keyhole that I want on the outside, and I'm just putting a little line of glue at the top so it's just gonna stick to the flap. And then I'm going in with my towel and wiping off the excess glue, making sure that it's on real good. And then I am adding my small magnets. I am gonna take a piece of square tape and then I'm gonna figure out where the magnet is going to be on the frame. And I'm placing it so it's gonna get covered by the frame, but also so that it's gonna be covered by the tabs on the other side. Then I'm taking my other magnet and placing it on top at the other side of the paper, and then I'm just using a small piece of squirt tape. Then when I close down the flap, it's gonna stick to the tab. So now I can glue on the other keyhole tab and cover up the magnet. And then I'm ready to put the whole thing onto my insert. I want the tab to be at the top of my insert, and as you can see, the clock goes all the way out to the edges of the insert. So it should be easy to put it in the center. But first I just have to find out where I am not gonna add my glue. I want to be able to slide down the photo so I could maybe change it if I want to. So I'm gonna add glue to the parts of the clock that is not covered by the photo. If you need to, you could just, of course, use a pencil to mark where the glue is gonna go. But I'm just gonna eyeball it this time. I am adding glue on the bottom of the clock and on the sides. And when you're adding it to your insert, be sure that the tab is down and that the 12 is up. And I'm gonna burnish it with my bone folder. And I'm kind of pushing away from where I want the photo to be, so I don't accidentally push the glue over to the part where there's not supposed to be glue, and I am wiping off the excess. And then it's time to see if I can slide down my photo or if I screwed this up. And look at that. Aren't they gorgeous? If the photo is a little too big, you can just trim it down or cut off the corners. My daughter was only 9 days old in this picture, and Kian was so proud to have a baby sister. Now he just thinks that she's the most annoying thing in the world. I am gonna add my middle corners, and if you can't find corners like this, you could just use a die to cut up some nice corners. I know there's a lot of gorgeous dies out there, but I like to add some special details on my projects, and I am just dabbing it with my towel, so if there is any glue that's gonna go through the holes, it's gonna get sucked up into the towel. And of course I am also securing the corners so they're not gonna fall off. And I'm still just using my bookbinding glue. It'll work just fine for this. If you can find these corners, you know they are really thin, so they're easy to bend, and we of course don't want that. So sometimes you just have to flatten them out before you use them. If they are not completely flat, then it'll be hard to get them to hold on to the paper. And I am just adding glue everywhere on these corners. And if it's too much and it goes through all of the holes, I am just gonna wipe it off anyways. So just be sure you have enough glue. Now the insert is almost done. I am just gonna add a little glossy accents on the keyhole tab just to make it a little thicker, and of course to get it nice and shiny. I almost always use glossy accents on my projects. It makes the details pop a little more. So I am gonna lay this aside to dry, and while it's drying I am gonna cover up all of the flaps in the waterfall and also the naked pieces between the pages. And I am gonna use this part of paper that I found in my scraps. And I am gonna cut some strips of the paper that are about 1/2 inch wide. And I am just gonna start with 2 strips to put in between the pages. And these are just a little bit too long, so I am just trimming them down with my scissors. And it looks like they both fit, so I am gonna ink the edges with my oxide. And then I can add my glue and put them in between the pages. It might be a little bumpy because of the magnets if you use the magnetic hinge system. But I am just gonna push it down as good as I can. And I'm also gonna use my towel to add the last bit of pressure while taking off any excess glue. And now it's time to cover up the waterfall flaps as well. And I am just gonna use the same piece of paper and cut up some more strips. But this piece is a little too long, so I am gonna cut it down to 5.5 inches and cut the strips at 1/2 inch. And this piece is 4 3/4 wide, so I am just gonna move it 1/2 inch at the time. So I am gonna start with 4 1/4, then 3 3/4, 3 1/4, 2 3/4, and 2 1/4, and so on until I have 8 strips for my waterfalls. Now the last one can be a little tricky because there is not much to hold on to. And of course I am gonna ink all of the edges. I easily get bored when I have to ink as many pieces as this, but I really like the look of it, so I would never skip this part. And it is easier to ink everything and then glue it on afterwards. Now I'm ready to glue all of the strips into my waterfall. And as you can see, I kind of puzzled them back together. So it'll be like a whole image when the waterfall is closed. And I'm laying them so they will show just a little bit of the white cardstock underneath. And I am wiping with my towel to get all of the excess glue off, like I always do. And now it's time to cover up the other waterfall. And I am not really sure what to say right now, so here is the sound of me eating a Danish cookie. Delicious. It's vanilla flavored Christmas cookies. They were on sale after Christmas, so everyone knows that the calories doesn't count. So I'm gonna eat another one. And now that that's done, I'm gonna make some more details in the album. I want to use some of the cutouts to make some pockets or some tuck spots. And I want to put the piece with the key right here. So I'm gonna get my scissors and cut it out. I am gonna use my paper trimmer to cut off the straight edges, and then I am gonna fussy cut the ends using my smaller scissors. I love fussy cutting. Either you hate it or you love it, and it's one of my favorite things to do. It always calms me down. I think it's really satisfying, but a lot of people hate it. I am inking the edges, of course, and I am gonna glue it down to a piece of white cardstock. And that is because I want to give it a little more strength so I could use it as a small pocket. but also to make a little frame around the cutout so it stands out more from the page. And again, I am using my trimmer and my small scissors to cut it out. I'm gonna put it underneath the waterfall on the first page, like so. I think that looks really cute, so I'm gonna glue that down. I am only gonna add a little glue on the bottom of this cutout piece. And I'm going as close to the edge as I can with a thin line of glue. And then I'm just adding a little more so it's actually gonna stick to the page. And I'm just eyeballing it when I'm gluing it on. I'm gonna try to place it in the middle as close to the bottom as possible without it looking weird. But of course, the closer you can get it to the bottom, the more stuff you can put in. So I am just wiping off the glue again. And now the glue is dry, so I'm gonna try with my photo again to see if it actually works. And then I'm moving back to the other waterfall and making another pocket. Again, I'm gonna place it right under or next to the waterfall, and I'm gonna use this tag with a key. I really like the color on this piece. I'm going in with my big scissors and just cutting off all of the parts I am not gonna use. There are so many cool cutouts in this collection, and you could use them for so many things if you don't want to add them to your album. I'm gonna cut this out with my paper trimmer, and then I'm gonna fussy cut the top. And this is also gonna get glued onto a piece of white cardstock once I've inked the edges. If you are making this album, you're gonna have 4 sheets left of the collection, and you can of course use those to make as many photo mats as you want, or you could maybe make some cards and add some of all the cool cutouts. The reason I am not using them in this tutorial is because I already used them in another project I made. I can show you what I used them for in the end of this video. I am gonna place this as close to the edge and as close to the bottom as I can. I'm adding a thin line of glue to the bottom of the tag, and then on the side as close to the edge as possible. And I am placing it right in the corner of this page. I think that looks good. And then I'm gonna take my towel again and wipe down the edges and remove all the excess glue, like so. And I am gonna take my photo again and put in to make sure that it's not glued down more than I want to. And I'm just gonna close this up and put it away for now. Then I'm gonna get started on some small booklets. I am gonna use the rest of this sheet with text. Usually I would just cut out the text, but this time I wanted to try something new, so I decided to cut them into small booklets. And I am cutting just a little bit under the bottom of the text, and I am also gonna do the same thing on the sides, just leaving a little bit of the white around the text. like so. And I'm just gonna do that with the other two as well. And I'm not measuring anything when I am doing this, I am just eyeballing it. And I think that I have about 1/16 of an inch around the tags. As I said, I didn't really measure, but you could just leave more or less if you want that. Or you could just cut out the tags, whatever you prefer. I'm gonna score these three in the middle, and instead of measuring them first, I just placed them on my scoreboard and used my 6-inch mark as my middle point. I just had to make sure that I had an equal amount of paper on both sides of the 6-inch mark. And then I scored them a couple of times each. I'm putting away my scoreboard and finding my bone folder. And once I folded these and made sure that the edges line up, I am just gonna go over the folds to make them a little sharper. The album I made here I gave to my kids' great grandparents, and I did manage to find some small photos I could put in these. So I made one for each of my kids and then added their names on the front, and it looked really nice. So now I've folded all of these, then I'm gonna use the 4mm punch in the corner punch to take off the sharp corners. I was thinking about fussy cutting around the top of the tags, but I decided not to, just to have more space for photos. I'm gonna get my oxide again and ink the edges before I put them into the album. And I'm not gonna add anything onto these, but I think they would be really cute if you added maybe a key or something else from the cutout sheet. And I think I'm just gonna tuck all of them into this this pocket right here. You could also just tuck them into the small pockets we just made on the waterfall pages. Now it's time to make the Home Sweet Home folder thingy. And I'll start by cutting off all of the edges around the frame. I really like this cutout. I think it's gorgeous, and I almost didn't even want to use it. But at least I didn't cut into it. Instead, I am gonna fold it so it's still in one piece, but then it can fit into the album. It should measure 9 inches, so I am gonna score it at 2¼ and I'm gonna score again at 6¾ and then I'm just gonna fold it at the score lines. They should meet in the middle like this. And I'm not gonna use my bone folder this time. I am just gonna use my fingers to fold it a little softer than it would if I used the bone folder, because I still want to be able to fold this out. And if you use a bone folder, it will just make a sharp edge, and it's gonna get a little wrinkly if you try to fold it out again. But so far so good. Now I am gonna make a closure with these two keyholes, and it's not gonna be magnetic this time. I'm gonna fussy cut both of them, but I'm gonna start with this one. I want this one to be on the outside of the folder and the other one on the inside. I am making a closure that you can slide down in the middle of the folder to hold the flaps together. And now I'm going to fussy cut the other one. You can put a big photo in the middle of this folder and maybe some smaller ones on the flaps. You could also just add some white cardstock so you have a little place to journal. Now I'm inking the edges of both pieces. And then I'm gonna show you how to put them together like this. I'm using a small strip of cardstock that I found in my scraps, and I want it to be as wide as the keyhole. And I'm gonna cut two pieces as big as the square part on the keyholes. And I'm just using the cutouts to measure how much I need. And these doesn't have to be perfect. You're not gonna be able to see them as long as you don't cut them longer than the cutouts. So I'm just gonna make sure that they are not too big. I want them to be under the square part. And I think these are gonna fit. So I'm gonna make a horizontal score line in the middle of both of them. And it is a little hard to hold on to when you have pieces as small as these. But I'm gonna fold them at the score line in the middle. And I want these to be as flat as possible, so I am going over them with my bone folder and adding a little pressure, so they're gonna have a sharp fold. And then I'm gonna glue them in between the cutouts, and I want the folds to meet in the middle. So I'm just gonna start with one of the pieces and add my glue. If you want to use squirt tape, that's fine. Then you have to make sure to cover up the whole thing as close to the edges as possible. So I've got the first one down, and then I'm gonna glue on the other one. And they have to be as close to each other as they can. And then I'm just gonna wipe off all the excess glue. I have a lot this time. And you don't want the whole thing to be sticky. So I think this looks pretty good. So I'm gonna add some glue on top of both of the cardstock pieces. And then I am gonna glue on the other cutout. Be sure that both of the pieces are turning the same way, so it's not gonna end up being upside down. And then just press them together and remove all of your excess glue. Remember to close your glue so it doesn't clog up. I always forget it. And now you should be able to slide down the closure. And I'm gonna add some glossy accents on this piece to make it a little stiffer and of course give it a nice shine. And I just realized that it might be a good idea to slide it off and add the glossy accents when it's laying on another piece of cardstock that I am not going to use. I tend to add a little too much sometimes, and then it's just going to run out and stick to whatever you have underneath. A little side note, it's really hard to remove dried glossy accents from your media mat. I thought I could just scrape it off with a knife, but I could not. So now I always lay the things I'm gonna add the glossy accents to on top of something that I am not gonna use. And if it runs over the edges, I just cut off the dried excess part with my scissors. And while that is drying, I'm gonna get my album and open up to page number 3, the one with the pockets. And I am just rearranging the little booklet so it's not gonna get too bulky at the bottom. And I am going through the cutouts and I found this key that I want to add. So I'm gonna use my scissors and cut it out. And this piece is a little hard to fussy cut because it's so thin. But because I want the middle of this piece to be loose, then I wouldn't be able to use it if I were to tear it in half. But luckily there are some more beautiful cutouts that you could use instead of this one. I'm just gonna cut out this piece with my knife. And I should have cut this part out before I cut out the rest of the key. It would have made it a little easier. But I am inking the edges. And that is also a little hard to do with this piece. But I just do it as good as I can. And then I'm gonna glue it into the album like this on top of the smallest pocket. And I'm not gonna glue this all the way down, so I am just adding glue to the ends of the key, like so. And I am gonna place it in the middle of the smallest pocket in the front. And I'm just gonna add a little pressure to get it down. And then I am taking my towel and kind of wiping it on and taking off any excess glue. And now that the middle part of the key is open, you could just tuck something down here like this. But I'm just gonna add some glossy accents on this as well to make it a little stronger. And I just said before that I always lay my pieces on top of some cardstock when I want to add the glossy accents. But because this piece is so thin, it would just curl up when it was drying. And then I could risk cracking the glossy accents if I tried to flatten it out. So this time I'm just gonna do it like this and then cross my fingers that the key is not gonna get stuck. Now the album is done. This just needs to dry. So while it's doing that, I'm just gonna show you the scraps you should have left from the collection. And I just realized that I don't have any more footage of the final results. But you could, of course, go back and watch the walkthrough again. I'm sorry, I'm gonna remember this for the next tutorial. But this is what you should have left from the collection. You could maybe make this into a cute photo mat. And of course, you should also have the 4 sheets that I already used. So you should be able to make plenty of stuff to put in your album. And I am just going to show you real quick what I did with my 4 sheets. I made a desk organizer, and some of you know I already made a new one with the graphic 45. So I gave this one to one of my very creative friends. And these are some boxes I got from my mom. She gets them every month with makeup and lotion and stuff like that. So I just glued the boxes together and then I cut the sheets into 3 pieces each. And I just glued it onto the front of the drawers. And then I added the buttons so you can open them. Thank you so much for watching my tutorial. If you want to see the next one, please subscribe to my channel and click the bell to be notified about my upcoming videos. If there is anything I could do better or if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below or message me on Facebook. Again, thank you for watching.